What is going on, Man Hour Nation? What is going on in the city of Chicago? It is your boy, Brandon Beastie, BC Combs. As you guys all know me, on the Man Hour with my boy, Michael Buckheister. And today we are going to have the inaugural show that is all about Chicago sports. This is something I've been contemplating for a while, something we've been trying to do, something we've been trying to push. And we're finally there. We're finally at the point where I just said, you know what? Enough's enough. We need some real Chicago sports talk in Chicago, because I listen to all these shows that are around. I listen to the ESPN 1000s and the Score 670s and all these other shows that are around. And the one thing that they're missing most of the time is hosts that are real with you, hosts that will tell you how it is, hosts that will not be blinded by political agendas and what the station wants them to say and doesn't want them to say. We don't have any affiliations with the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Cubs, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Chicago Bulls. We don't have any of those affiliations, so we're able to just say what we want to say, right? You guys who listen to us live on the Man Hour every week know that what is our saying? We are live, we are raw, and we are uncut. So that's what Chicago Sports Talk, that's what Man Hour Chicago is going to be all about. The truth about Chicago sports. Because us as Chicago sports fans, that's what we deserve. We deserve to know and hear what is going on behind the scenes. We deserve to hear the truth. We deserve, for a platform for you guys to come on here and air your grievances with what your team is doing, whether that be the Bears, the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, the White Sox, any of these teams. And we need that platform. We need that platform for people to be real. As I see Buck is in the chat. I do see Casey Morgan is in the chat. He says they beat the Pats in prime time. We did beat the Pats in prime time. I will say that. And we're going to get to some Bears talk here in a minute. One of the things that I want you guys to know about Chicago sports, and for those of you that are listening who might not be, strictly Chicago sports fans, who might not be, in the area, or for those of you who might just be those sports fans who are watching just because they live in they play in your city that you live in, right? This show is about the truth. This show is about telling you, hey, look, we've got 5 owners in the city through all the major sports teams. We've got 5 owners in the city who treat every single one of these teams like they are a small market city. We get treated like we are fans, like we are from Tampa Bay, like we don't fill our stadiums, like we're from Montreal and we don't go to games that our team's playing. But we pack these stadiums in every sport. We go, I went to a Blackhawks game a couple weeks back, right? Blackhawks are not going to be very good. What they've done with that roster is despicable. But that United Center was packed, and it was a Tuesday night. Yet we're told by our owners and by the GMs and by everybody else around that is affiliated with them, oh, they just didn't have the money. They got to do this. They got to do that. Are you kidding me? I don't see that problem in LA with the Dodgers. I don't see that problem with the Lakers. I don't see that problem with the Boston Celtics. I don't see that problem with the New England Patriots. You know why? Because they spend money. Because they go at the players, instead of rebuilding, they retool. And we don't have those types of owners here in Chicago right now. We don't. And the reason why is because we as fans still line their pockets. And that's just the hard truth. So that's why we are here. And that's what this platform is all for. So if you're a fan of Chicago sports, if you're a fan of any of the teams or all of the teams like myself, look, I love the Cubs, right? I'm a diehard Cubs fan, but I don't hate the White Sox. I hate the Cardinals. I hate the Brewers. I say it all the time. I don't hate the White Sox. I'll talk White Sox just as much as I talk Cubs. As a matter of fact, the White Sox just made a move that I believe is going to turn their franchise around. The hire of Pedro Grifol. That was a great hire. And it wasn't just a great hire because the GM and the owner got the manager that they were looking for, who will be a yes guy, who will allow them to still say, hey, these are the guys we want to bring in. You do your job and manage them. But this is the guy that's perfect for the players as well. This is a guy who is going to come in and has a background in player development. This man was a high school player of the year in 1988. He was an All-American at Florida State in 1991. He's played in the league for 9 years. And since then, he's been in player development. He's been in coaching. He coached for Bucks Kansas City Royals. He's been the bench coach since 2020. He's been in with the staff since 2013. And all the players talk highly about him. Not only that, he is a Spanish-speaking manager, which is something that they didn't have with the previous regime, which was the biggest debacle of a hire that they've had forever. So, and I see the chat blowing up. I see you, Howard Schaff. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining. Talking about the Bears and trading Roquan Smith, and I promise you I am going to get to that. We are going to be talking about the Bears today. We are going to be talking about whether that was a trade that is going to help the Chicago Bears, whether it's a trade that's going to help the Baltimore Ravens. What's going to happen with all of that? We're going to get to that here in just a minute. Back to Pedro Grifol. I think that the White Sox made this move, and I was screaming for Ozzie Guillen, right? Because look, Ozzie Guillen's the last manager that won a World Series with the White Sox. He is around the team every day as an analyst. He, relates with the Chicago's sports market. He relates with the fans. The fans love him. But I think Pedro Grifol is going to be that guy too. So for the Chicago White Sox, this was a great hire. And I don't know, for any of you out there listening, I don't know if any of you have any, anything you want to talk about with, the hire of Pedro Grifol, if the White Sox made a good move or a bad move, if you liked it or if you wanted to see something different, chime in the chat. Let me know. And if you're not watching live and you chime in the chat or you want to hit me up, you can hit me up at manhour_beastie on Twitter. You can hit me up, on Facebook at any point. Just shoot me a private message. I will respond. I will talk to you. I love talking sports. So that's just something that I do. I've got a lot of guys around me, guys that I work with, here in Chicago, and a lot of them will start talking to me about sports at the shop. A lot of them, we got those sports fans, in the shop that are, we're going to be great this year. This team's going to, and I'm like, calm down. This is the truth. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what you need to look out for, and here's what you're actually going to see. And it would be great if we come in every year like the LA Dodger fans, like fans of the New England Patriots, like fans of the LA Lakers and Boston Celtics, like fans of, these cities that continue to retool and don't put their fans through a rebuild every 4 to 5 years. So if you want to talk true sports, if there's topics you want to hear me talk about throughout the week, feel free to hit me up. We will get to them. We will talk to them. I do plan on having a phone line here for people to call in. I do plan on doing this every single Sunday. So definitely, give me what you guys want to talk about. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. I want to talk about what you want to hear. I am in the market for a co-host, for somebody who is just as enthused by Chicago sports as myself. We will be listening. We will be looking. So feel free to chime in and let me know what you want to talk about. So with that being said, let's get to the big news of the week, right? Let's get to the sport that's in season, which is the NFL. And I say in season because baseball ended yesterday. They finally got God, and I can't stand this guy because of what he did with the Cubs and what he did with that pitching staff. But Dusty Baker finally got his World Series last night. So baseball's over. Astros won again. Who cares? Let's get to some football talk, right? And the Bears are headed in a new direction. They trade Roquan Smith. They trade Robert Quinn. And they get a 4th-round pick for Quinn. They get a 2nd and a 5th for Roquan Smith. And I start thinking to myself, wow, it's 2 really good. You got one of the best edge rushers in the history of your team, who has only been here for 2 years at that. And you get a linebacker who is leading the league in tackles, and you get a 2nd, a 5th, and a 4th. I'm like, man, you're getting fleeced. What is going on? And then I step back for a second, and I think there's got to be a plan, right? What is the plan here? Why are we getting rid of these pieces for draft picks, right? And Howard says, I'm confused how the Bears are rebuilding, but traded their 2 best defensive players. And that's a great point, right? Roquan Smith had it, and it looks like you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, which good on you. That this is a good team. You probably don't like my boy Buck, who always talks about how Lamar is trash, which I highly disagree with. But that's a topic for another time. So you're probably happy with this trade. And now let me tell you what you can expect out of Roquan Smith. In your defensive scheme, you can expect Roquan Smith to be the all-pro that he's been while he's been in Chicago. You can expect him to make an impact right away. You are going to be extremely happy with Roquan Smith. For Chicago sports fans, you've got to look at the reality of the situation. Roquan Smith was in the final year of his deal. Roquan Smith valued his play higher than what the team valued his play at. And they're now running a system in which a weak side linebacker doesn't necessarily fit the scheme. So you see what you can get in the trade, right? And the 2nd and the 5th, and I'm like, man, what are they doing? What is the plan here? And then the very next day, I think the plan starts to surface, right? Because they go out and they trade for instead of signing. They go out and they trade for Chase Claypool, and they trade their 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool. And they go out and they upgrade a position, which, let's just face it, in years past, they wouldn't have upgraded. They wouldn't have gone out and looked for a guy to try to help their quarterback. That's just not what the Bears are about. But they did that. Now, whether or not this is a good trade for the Bears is still going to remain to be seen, right? Because here's the problem. You got Chase Claypool. You got another weapon for you got your only real weapon for Justin Fields. And you got a guy who can run routes, a guy who has shown that he can have number 1 talent. And people are down on Chase Claypool, right? Because of the last 2 seasons that he's had. They're down on the fact that he's had a couple of bad seasons. But you got to look at it and take it into perspective. You got to look at Chase Claypool played the year after his rookie year, in which he just, came out and was amazing, and everybody thought he was going to be this all-pro, great wide receiver. And in that 2nd year, he's playing with a quarterback who was beyond his prime, a quarterback who held on a year too long. And then this year, he's been playing with Mitch Trubisky. And us Chicago fans know all about playing with Mitch Trubisky, right? We've watched this story. We know how this story ends. I'm a fan of Chase Claypool. As a matter of fact, I have Chase Claypool on like 3 out of my 7 fantasy leagues that I'm in, because I think that Chase Claypool has that potential to be a number 1 wide receiver on a team. And he can be that with the Bears. He could be the Bears' number 1 for the next 5-6 years. And he could be an impact player. The problem is we still don't have an offensive line that can block. The problem is that I don't know if Chase Claypool is going to be the guy that can come in and just all of a sudden explode, because if that's what Bears fans are expecting, Bears fans are going to be disappointed, right? Because you still don't have that guy who's who's going to go out there and just put up all these numbers, because you still don't have an offensive line that can block. And if what scares me the most is if the offensive coordinator starts going back, if Luke Getsy starts going into his playbook and starts going, you know what, we got Chase Claypool now, we can get into those 3 and 4 steps drops. We don't need to go back out and roll out of the pocket. But that's what Justin Fields excels at. So if you get away from your game plan just because you went out and traded for a wide receiver one, that's the first thing that scares me. The second thing that scares me is a pocket constantly collapsing around Justin Fields. Now, in the last 3 weeks, you've seen a lot of growth from Justin Fields. You've seen a lot of good things. I mean, hell, they've scored 62 points in the last 2 games. They've scored the most points against the Dallas Cowboys, even though it was a 20-point loss. Nobody's put up 29 against the Dallas Cowboys defense, and they did that in Dallas. The week before that, they put up 33 points in a victory against the New England Patriots in a game in New England where a lot of people thought that they were going to wilt, that it wasn't going to be a good night for the Chicago Bears, myself included. I really thought the Bears were going to get taken to task that night. But what we've seen from Justin Fields in the last 2 weeks is a lot of growth. Now, you've also seen this year where you've seen a lot of bad decisions from him. But what you don't know is whether or not those bad decisions are the effect of a pocket that is constantly collapsing. We don't know if Justin Fields can be a great pocket passer because he doesn't have a pocket to pass from. Say that 5 times fast. He doesn't have that pocket that it is like well, not this year, but Tom Brady's pockets of past. He doesn't have the same pocket that they have over in Kansas City. He doesn't have the same pocket that Lamar Jackson has. He doesn't have the same pocket that they have up in Buffalo for Josh Allen. But what he's shown over the last 2 weeks is that he can be that special player when you roll him out of the pocket, when you get him into open fields. He can make smart decisions. He can make clean passes on the run. Those are the things that you can see from Justin Fields. So I don't know if Justin Fields, I see Casey Morgan in the chat saying, you ever think it's the team, but the higher ups and the coaching staff? I do think that there's a lot of problems with the coaching staff and the GM of past, right? I'm going to give Matt Eberflus's coaching staff a pass here, because they are still playing with players that were chosen by Ryan Pace and players that were not their guy. But what they did with this trade was show you that they are willing to build around Justin Fields, that they are willing to bring out something new that they haven't done before, which is build around a franchise quarterback, right? You saw it a little bit. You saw it a little bit under Jay Cutler, but in the grand scheme of things, how many times did we scream and scream and scream that Jay Cutler just needed a couple of wide receivers to help him out? Yet he was given Devin Hester as a wide receiver, who, let's just face it, Devin Hester is a Hall of Famer, but he's a Hall of Famer because of his kick returns. He's not a Hall of Famer because of his wide receiver catching ability. So when it comes to the higher ups and the coaching staff, I'm going to give it a pass for at least another season, right? Because we started to see it a little bit. We saw the draft style of Ryan Poles this past season. I've liked what he's done with trades. Now, look, I know we've given up Robert Quinn, and I know we've given up Roquan Smith, and those are 2 players that I loved watching play in Bears uniforms. But sometimes it's like the aspect of, right, you've got to spend money to make money. And it's the same thing with getting better. Sometimes you got to get worse before you can get better. And on the defensive side of things, we've definitely gotten worse over the last 2 weeks. On the defensive side of things, we're going to have to get into a shootout, right? Like I fully believe that the Miami Dolphins are a problem today, right? Because you've got Jalen Waddle, you've got Tyreek Hill, you got Tua playing good football right now. They've got a good running back. This Dolphins team might pose a problem for this defense. But what I want to see even in a loss, because you can still see growth. See a lot of growth as Chicago fans, that's for sure. But you can see growth in players, even in losses, right? Like, I didn't expect the Bears to be a playoff team. I expected them to win about between 7 to 9 games, which is what I said before the season started. They were a 7 to 9 win team. A lot of people were picking them to win 4, maybe 5, 6 games at the most. I didn't see that from them, right? I thought they were a 7 to 9 win team. Some of it was because of the schedule. Some of it was because I just thought they were a better team than people thought that they were. And Justin Fields is growing, and you can see growth in losses, like we saw last week in Dallas. Well, what he did in Dallas to that defense was awesome, right? 29 points against the Dallas Cowboys, a team that hasn't given up more than 20 all season long. Like, yes, you lost the game by 20, but you still see growth, and you know your defense is going to be bad because you're getting rid of defensive pieces. So, can you get into a shootout today with the Miami Dolphins? Can Luke Getsy develop a game plan that can allow the Chicago Bears and do what they've done all season, which is stay close in the first half and then have a great second half and make it at least a close game? That's what they had last week too. You say all you want about that loss in Dallas, but that the 28 points in the first half is what really ultimately what killed them. That fumble by David Montgomery, that was the turning point in the game right there, right? But the Bears were able to score. The Bears were able to do things on the ground against the Dallas Cowboys. Now they need to translate that and do the same types of things and not get away from their game plan just because they went out and signed Claypool to be able to get into a shootout with the Miami Dolphins. And I do believe that they can get into a shootout with the Miami Dolphins. Well, Howard here says Justin Fields was a great pocket passer in college. The Ravens built their team around Lamar's talents. The Bear fans can only hope the Bears organization will do the same for Fields. I agree. Justin Fields was a good pocket passer in college. Justin Fields also had a ton of weapons in college. Justin Fields also had an offensive line in college. The same knock that I had on draft night, and Buck, who is in the chat, can back me up on this. We had a draft night special for the Man Hour, and we were talking about the draft, and then all of a sudden the Bears moved up to 11, and I lost my mind because I was like, oh my God, we're going to get Justin Fields. We're going to sign Justin Fields. And then they announced the pick, and we got Justin Fields, and we're talking in the group. It was me, it was Wyatt, it was Tori, and it was Buck. And we're talking, and I said, you know what? I still have the same questions about him. And it's still true. If you watch Justin Fields play, and I don't know how much you're watching Chicago Bears games, Howard, but if you're watching Justin Fields play in the pocket, what you're seeing is a guy who does have a tendency to hold on to the ball too long. This isn't college football. So when a guy has a two-step, hit on his defender, when he's running that slant, that's the time to pull the trigger. What Justin's tending to do now is when he does that, he waits a second or 2 seconds too long, and the defender's catching up by that point. So it's still the same knock that I had on him coming out of college, is that when he is in the pocket, when the pocket isn't completely collapsing around him, he has a tendency to hold on to the ball too long. And so that's why I say I need to see more growth from him as a pocket passer. I just don't believe you're going to see that growth this year because you can't consistently have a pocket enough for him to become a passer out of. That pocket is consistently collapsing. So your clock gets turned around, your field of vision gets turned around. You're starting to do things that you don't normally do. But what have we seen over the last couple of weeks from Justin Fields when he's been in the pocket on those screen passes? He's finally starting to change his arm angle. He's utilizing pump fakes. He's doing things to get the defenders off balance so that he can make plays happen. And those have been the growth in the pocket that you have been able to see. But as far as a true pocket passer, you're just not going to see that out of Justin the way that this Bears team is designed. Casey Morgan says, too many good players asking for way too much money. Then they don't know why the team can't get more players. Casey, I said the same exact thing on Facebook. Somebody had said in a Bears chat, they said, I could name 7 wide receivers, ones that I'd rather have than Chase Claypool. And I said, well, yeah. I said I could name, probably 20 wide receivers that I'd rather have over Chase Claypool, right? But would you rather have one really great piece, like a Hall of Fame piece, one Hall of Fame piece that costs you so much money in cap space that you can't afford to really get great around him? Or would you rather have one all pro type player, a guy who can consistently be good and be able to have the ability to build around him? And I think that that's what the Bears have to go for here, because you don't have enough pieces here to be a good team in the next 3 or 4 years. But what you do have is the ability to go out and spend money. What you do have is the ability to get better through free agency. What you do have is the ability to build around these pieces because you haven't tied yourself down with cap space yet. Now, in the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to have to tie yourself down with cap space because you're going to have to sign Justin Fields to a long-term deal. And for those of you in Chicago that are saying that Justin Fields is not the long-term answer, you're an idiot. I don't know how else to say it. And look, I don't like to beat around the bush. I don't like to call out people who are listening on the show. But if you are watching Justin Fields play over the last few weeks and you still don't feel like you have a guy who can succeed as a quarterback, then you don't know football. And you're just a fan, and what you want is to see wins, right? And look, we all want wins. I would love for the Bears to be a 14-3 team and a team that's vying for the Super Bowl. I would love to be a team like the Buffalo Bills right now. But the Bears are not that team. The Bears are a 7-9 win team. So you have to expect them to win 7 to 9 games. They're not going to win every week, but you can still see your quarterback shine, still see growth from the quarterback, still see good decisions, still see good things happening without him having to win football games every single week, because they're just not going to. They're probably going to lose today to the Miami Dolphins, right? And then they're probably going to lose next week. I can't remember exactly who they are playing next week. I'm actually pulling it up right now. But the Bears they're not a very good football team right now. They've got some nice pieces. They've got some things in place, but they're probably going to lose to the Dolphins this week. The Lions next week is a very good team. The Lions next week, you could definitely win that game, but you could also lose that game by 30 points. You could also lose that game by 30 points and not even blink, because the Lions offense is one of those offenses that can score at will. Now, the thing that I've said about the Lions time and time again is that the Lions are a team that could score 35 points at will, but sometimes they have a tendency to give up 40. And that's more times than not, right? You got the Falcons and the Jets and the Packers. Like, you've got a schedule coming forward where you've got a chance to make some noise. Beyond that, I don't know what you're going to do, right? Because you still have the Packers, the Eagles, the Bills, and the Vikings. So, I mean, those games right there, but you can still get to that 7 to 8 win plateau that I was expecting them to be at the beginning of the season. Now, they've lost a game that I didn't expect them to lose, which was against the Commanders. Nobody expected the Giants to be as good as they have been, but you were in both of those games, right? They lose to the Vikings by a touchdown. They were in that game. The Vikings are a very good team. And then you blow out the Patriots in New England. And then you lose to the Cowboys by 20 in Dallas. But now you come home. And you've got a real chance to pull off an upset today. They do have a real chance. I don't expect them to do it, but they have a chance. So Buck chimes in and says, if the Bears win today, do you see them in the playoffs? If the Bears win today, I still don't see them in the playoffs. I see them beating the Lions next week. I do see them beating the Falcons. And I could see them beating the Jets. But again, the Jets are another team that is better than what a lot of people thought they were going to be. But like I said, they still got the Packers at home, which Look, I would love to beat the Packers in Chicago. I would love to turn this around, and this is a Packers team that I think is very beatable and very vulnerable. But then you got the Eagles, who are still undefeated, might still be undefeated by the time you play them. Then you got the Bills, who are, to me, the best team in football. That's why they're number one in my weekly power rankings that I put out every week. You get the Lions one more time in Detroit, and then you get the Vikings. So, no, I don't expect them to be a playoff team. I expect them to win 4 more games, which puts them at 7-10. It would. Then again, let me pause for a second, because 7-10 in the NFC might get you enough to get into the playoffs, right? Because when you start looking at teams' records, when you start looking at teams' records, you start looking at, what the hell is going on in football? What the hell is going on, especially in the NFC? In the NFC, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams with winning records. 5 teams out of 16 have winning records. That's crazy to me. And 3 of those 5 are in the NFC East. 3 of those 5 are in the NFC East. The Atlanta Falcons are leading the NFC South right now at 4-4. The Seattle Seahawks are 5-3. They're leading the NFC West. The Vikings are 6-1, and everybody else, the Bears and the Packers, are both tied at 3-5, and the Lions are 1-6. And then you got 3 teams in the NFC East who have winning records: 8-0, 6-2, 6-2. So maybe 7-10 does get you into the playoffs. And Buck says it's 7-10. People will go crazy and ask for a new playoff system. There might be multiple teams at 7-10 that get into the playoffs. So that's the thing. You look at even in the AFC. Even in the AFC, we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams with winning records. 7 teams with winning records. So you might get a team in the AFC, and you might even get 2 teams in the NFC that get in at 7-10. And you're right. I mean, people will go crazy. People always go crazy. People always ask for new playoff systems. What's going on, Jeffrey? I see you in the chat. Sorry that your internet sucks. But hey, feel free to join us anytime. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter, on Facebook. Let me know some of the things that you want to hear me talk about here in the new Man Hour Sports Talk Chicago. So, guys, we at the Man Hour, we continue to work. We continue to put in the effort to give you guys what you want to hear. Live, raw, uncut. We come at you. We don't have anything holding us back. We don't have any ties to any radio stations or any ties to anybody that is putting any handcuffs on us. What you get is us being us. And 9 times out of 10, I'd venture to guess that half of the things that I'm saying, I wouldn't go as far as saying Buck, but half of the things that I'm saying is stuff that people are saying in the bars while they're watching the games as well. We are here for you. This is your platform. We are the voice of the fans. We want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. So feel free, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Facebook, hit me up on, whatever any platform you want to hit me up on. You want to text me if there's a group of my friends watching the show, or if it's anything that you guys want to talk about, I want to bring it to you, right? So let's get it there. Let's get Man Hour Chicago. Let's get Man Hour. Let's get all these things that we are working so hard for, and let's boost them up like they should be. Because we don't have the clowns that are saying, oh, well, you got to do this and you shouldn't do that and you shouldn't. We're not that. We're going to talk about the hard subjects too. We're going to talk about the subjects nobody else wants to touch on, and we're going to bring some truth to you. And that's what we do. That's what Man Hour is all about. That's what Man Hour Chicago is all about. Chicago sports talk for Chicago sports fans. So if you want to have some Chicago sports talk, you want to have some say in what is going on, you want to have your input out there, you think that what I'm saying is nonsense, or you think that what I'm saying is absolutely true, chime in. Let us know. Hit me up in the chats. This has been the inaugural show of Man Hour Chicago. We bring you straight talk. We've talked to you about the Chicago White Sox. We've talked to you about the Chicago Bears. We will talk about the Bulls. I don't mind talking about the Blackhawks. I love both. I love every single sport. You guys want to talk about the Chicago Fire? We'll talk about the Chicago Fire. I ain't scared. We will talk about whatever you want to talk about Chicago related. So hit me up. Till next time, Man Hour Nation, rise up.